God spends an entire chapter convincing Moses to go save Israel. He gives him miracles. He promises to be with him every step of the way. And then, on the road to Egypt, in the middle of the night, God shows up to end his life. The same man he just sent. It's one of the most shocking, confusing verses in the entire Bible. 4 short sentences in Exodus 4 that almost nobody can explain. But there are 3 clues hidden in the text, and once you see them, this terrifying little story becomes one of the most important warnings God ever gave a leader. Here's what it actually says. Moses is finally obeying God. He's packed up his wife, Zipporah, and his sons, and he's heading back to Egypt to set his people free. And then the text says this: at a lodging place on the way, the Lord met Moses and was about to take his life. That's it. No warning. No reason. The God who just commissioned him now stands against him. Then his wife Zipporah grabs a sharp flint knife, performs the circumcision of their son, touches it to Moses' feet, and says, "Surely you are a bridegroom of blood to me." And just like that, the danger lifts. If you just read that and thought, "I have so many questions," you are not alone. This is one of the strangest passages in the whole Bible. So let's solve it. 3 clues. And clue number 1 is the question everyone skips. What was God actually reacting to? Clue number 1, the timing. This doesn't happen randomly. It happens at the exact moment Moses is traveling to become the leader of God's covenant people. Think about it. God is about to use Moses to confront Pharaoh, to bring 10 plagues, to lead millions of people out of slavery. Moses is about to become the face of God's covenant. And right at that threshold, God stops him cold. That's the clue. Whatever the problem is, it has something to do with Moses being unfit in some way to lead the very people he's being sent to. The timing isn't an accident. It's the whole point. But to see what was actually wrong, you need clue number 2. Clue number 2 is hiding in the solution. Look at what makes the danger stop. It's not a prayer. It's not a sacrifice. Zipporah circumcises their son. That is the clue. Centuries earlier, God had given Abraham one physical sign of the covenant, one mark that said, "This family belongs to God." Circumcision. Every son was to receive it. It wasn't optional. God called it an everlasting covenant, and to skip it was to cut yourself off from your own people. And here's the uncomfortable truth the story points at. Moses, the man God chose to lead the covenant people, had apparently never done this for his own son. Maybe Zipporah, who wasn't an Israelite, had resisted it. Maybe Moses let it slide to keep the peace at home. Either way, the deliverer of the covenant was neglecting the covenant in his own house. And you cannot represent God in public while quietly disobeying him in private, which leads to the strangest and honestly the most beautiful detail of all. Clue number 3, the blood. Watch what saves Moses' life. Blood. Zipporah performs the circumcision. There's blood. She touches it, and the threat lifts. Now hold that image, blood applied, and death passes over. And remember where Moses is going. He's marching toward Egypt, toward the very first Passover, where God's people will smear lamb's blood on their doorposts so that death passes over their homes. The exact same pattern. Blood applied, death passes by. Before Moses ever delivers that message to a nation, God writes it into Moses' own life, in the dark, on the side of the road. The lesson he's about to teach, he first has to live. This was never random cruelty. It was the most personal lesson God could possibly give him. Now, a couple of honest things. This passage is genuinely cryptic. Scholars have argued about it for centuries. The Hebrew is so tight, we're not even fully sure whether the danger came for Moses or for the son. And about to take his life is the Bible's language for a sudden, life-threatening encounter, likely an illness or a confrontation in the night, not God flying into a rage. But on the main point, the text is surprisingly clear. The danger appears the moment a covenant leader is found neglecting the covenant, and it ends the moment that's put right. So what do we do with this? Here's the lesson buried in the scariest verse about Moses. It's not that God is unstable or that he turns on the people he loves. It's the opposite. God took Moses seriously enough to refuse to let him lead with unfinished obedience sitting in his own home. The people closest to God, the ones he uses the most, are held to the covenant first, not because he loves them less, but because so much depends on them. And notice who God used to save Moses. Not an angel, not a miracle. His wife, quietly doing the thing that should have been done long ago. Sometimes the people right beside us are the ones who keep us right with God. And here's the bigger thing. A verse that looks insane on the surface, God attacking his own prophet, turns out, when you slow down, to be about covenant and obedience and blood that saves. The same themes the rest of the Bible is built on. The strange verses aren't glitches, they're doorways. So, if this gave you a new way to see even one passage, subscribe and stick around. And tell me in the comments, which confusing verse should we decode next? Because the Bible is full of these, and we are just getting started.